Hey y'all, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just jump right in. I had this idea because a couple people were asking me about this, and I just kind of assumed that everyone watches a million YouTube videos like I do, and they don't. So I really wanted to just sit down and do like what brushes that you need, kind of like what products you want for certain things. I get a lot of questions about like how to contour. I just wanted to give you like a breakdown of like what products you'll need, what kind of brushes that I use personally, and just like a little bit of techniques to help you achieve what you see me doing. Even though I can explain it in a video, I may not break it down as much as I could. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, to start off with, if you have dry skin like I do, I prep my face with an oil, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, I usually don't because I'll be like sweating and gross, whatever, you know. It just kind of depends on the day. If I have like an off day, then I'll put like moisturizer all over my face, like from the morning till night. But if it's in the middle of the winter like it is now, then I will go ahead and put on my skincare kind of like before. And by oil, I mean like by Tarte, there's a thing called maracuja oil. I use that one on top of, I mean, there's all sorts of ones that you can use. You gotta find the one that fits best for you, because I can't tell you what your skin type is like through the screen. So prep your face with an oil if you have drier skin. If you don't have drier skin, you want to prep your face with an oil kind of like at night when you're doing like your nighttime routine, so it can soak in and it won't ruin your makeup throughout the day, because everyone needs oil, even oily skin people. Because sometimes oily skin people have oily skin because their body is unused to, the body tells it needs more oil because you're over drying it with whatever products you're putting on it or something like that. So everyone needs moisture, they just may need it in different doses and at different points in the day. To start off with any sort of look, as what like skincare excluded, you start out with a primer for your face. Now a primer is going to leave a tackier base, and some people prefer silicone primers, and some prefer like these kind of primers where they're kind of like wet. Like I really like this Too Faced one because I do not like silicone primers. I don't have enormous pores. I have fairly medium-sized pores, so sometimes I'll go in with a pore filler. But my main one, because it feels so light and it kind of leaves the face tacky so that it will catch all of that foundation that we put on later and keep it there. My favorite is the Too Faced Hangover Primer because it's moisturizing and it just doesn't feel like a primer. And I don't like the feeling of primer, so I tend to use this a lot more. And I notice my face is a lot more hydrated and there's like no dry patches of skin or anything like that. But it still leaves my skin kind of like refreshed feeling. It's not a cooling sensation, but it definitely feels good on the skin. It's a little bit more watery than a lot of other primers. Here is the next step, okay? I typically prime my eyelids, and I'll do my eyes first. Not always, but I'm going to tell you why here. A lot of people do their eye makeup first because all the fallout happens. And if you've got a palette that has a lot of fallout, then you want to do your eyes first because it will settle down onto your makeup and make you look really dark. And if you've got dark eyeshadows, like dark circles underneath your eye like me, then you're going to look even more tired, and it's going to really like announce the fact that you're super tired. So I would do your eyes first unless you know that your palette has no fallout. Now, ways so that you don't get fallout is you can always tap off your brush after you've dipped it into the color. I do that quite a lot, but still sometimes a lot of makeup palettes still do have fallout even when you tap it off. For my eyelids, for my eyeshadow, I don't always prime my eyelids, but I have veins and I have really thin skin on my eyes, so I will typically use a primer. Because I have dry eyelids, I use this really thin, this is the Maybelline instant age rewind, blah, blah, blah. I cannot talk today. Oh my gosh. Instant age rewind eraser of dark circles, and this is in the shade Fair. I accidentally picked up the wrong shade, so that's typically why I use this, because I've already bought it, so I just used it. And I actually really enjoy this as an eyeshadow primer. Eyeshadow primer is going to make your eyes just really, like, the color is going to stay longer. So if you have oily eyelids, you need an eyeshadow primer. Another thing is too, if you have discoloration of any kind along your eyelids, like if you have red eyelids, I know some medium to darker skin tones have like a lot of darkness around their eyelids and everything. So they will go in with a primer to help correct all that, so that when you put on eyeshadow, it's not just adding to that darkness and adding to that weird coloration. Because if you add color on top of color, it's going to just mix the colors. It's not just going to cancel out color. So you want like a corrector, like a concealer, or you can actually go and buy an eyeshadow primer from your drugstore or Sephora or Ulta or whatever. So anyway, I will set my eyelids, and if I do not have a matte shade that matches my skin tone, I'll go in either with translucent powder, or I'm going to go in with this really light shade. This is part of, this is by I think this is IBY Beauty, or IB Beauty. I don't know if it actually is called IB Beauty, or if I just call it that. So I'm going to pick up this color that's like my skin color. I don't know if you can see it because of the glare. And I'm just going to pick that up on a brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this whole area so that it's not tacky, and so that the shadows blend really smoothly across my eyelid. And when you do that, your eyeshadow is going to show up more vibrantly, and it's also going to last longer. So I'm just going to set that with a big fluffy brush. Honestly, you can use any sort of brush. You could even use your beauty blender. You don't have to buy a beauty blender, but that's just my preferred thing when I'm working with creams and stuff. Using this little eyeshadow palette. This is by Milani. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a corrective eye, okay? I have hooded eyes, which means when I open up my eyes, you're hardly seeing any of this lid. Like winged eyeliner just does not work on me very well because I have such hooded eyes and because I suck at it. So what I end up doing is I almost always start off with a crease color. And a crease color is going to help define your eye. Not everybody with hooded eyes can do this. Only certain ones. I have like minorly hooded eyes. I don't have like completely hooded eyes. So some people, when they open up their eyes, it's almost like you can't see any of their eyelid at all. And so sometimes you won't use a crease color on them, just because it won't show up, and it'll start looking kind of weird once you start doing it. So for a crease color, you want a kind of like a medium shade. And now that I'm looking in this palette, there kind of really isn't one to start off with. So I'm actually going to go back to this. I like using like peachier tones or like warm tones or something very light to start off with in the crease. And what I use for a brush is like a big fluffy brush. A lot of companies will come out with crease brushes because building up the crease is very popular. So they'll come out with brushes especially for that, to fit in this area right here, which is known as the crease. Okay, so you're going to want to build up that crease color first. And I'm just using like a light color to build it up. You don't want to start out heavy because it won't blend as easy. And a lot of people, me included, I'm not just singling y'all out, a lot of people will drag this color like way down, and when you drag that color down, you're gonna you're gonna start looking older, and you're gonna start dragging that eye down, and you're gonna start looking kind of sad. Okay, so everything that you do needs to be lifting up. Okay, so when I'm blending, I never go outside of the line of my eyebrow. I always keep it inside, unless I'm doing something incredibly blown out. But I am so, like, I have such hooded eyes that that's really not a good idea for me to blow out stuff, or else I can start looking really droopy on the outside of my eye. And that's when you start looking a little bit older than you actually are with your makeup. So you always want to have everything kind of lift up. If you get real messy, don't worry, you can always clean up the edge with like a makeup wipe. Move the makeup by swiping up you kind of give that angle. That's why a lot of people use winged eyeliner, because it's lifting up and it's visually creating that your eye goes up and creates a more pleasing face structure, okay? So now that I've used that kind of like peachy shade in my crease, I've kind of started off. If you want more color in your crease, you want to use a more condensed brush. Like this is very fluffy, and what you want to use is a smaller, more compacted brush. I still want mine pretty blended out, so I'm going to pick up this shade now. It's this cool brown, and I'm just going to start building this up on that outer corner, very light hand, only kind of putting like the tip of my crease brush in there, okay? And when I do it right on the outside, I'm not dragging all that color into the middle or that inner corner, because that will start making my eyes look really dark in here, and that can also make you look really tired and kind of dirty almost. So just keep it on this outer portion of your eye, and you can slowly blend a little bit of that color in, like with whatever is residue. You don't want to go in to the palette more and then keep packing on that color. You just want to make it real blended, real smoked out, because we're kind of just doing corrective. We're not doing anything extreme today. Now, because I built that up, I like shadow on the outer portion of my eye. You don't want to go past that middle, because then you're going to start shortening your eyes, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a little bit more condensed, fluffier brush, okay? And I'm going to pick up this, this darker shade right here. And we're just going to pack that on the outer corner. And we're going to make a V, okay? So we're not going past that eyebrow, and we're only doing a V right here on the outer portion of that eye. This will smoke out the eye, give us a little bit of dimension there, and just kind of accentuate our eyes, okay? I don't use a whole lot of eyeliner whenever I do looks. I find it very heavy, especially since I'm pretty blonde. Not like super blonde, but a lot of people are fixated on eyeliner, and eyeliner can be really good. It just kind of depends on what your makeup is. If you don't wear any eyeshadow at all, you might want to use some eyeliner. You don't have to always have eyeliner, though, to make a look smoky. Now that I've kind of built up that darker color, I'm going to work in little swirling motions with this thicker brush, not putting any more product on it. And I'm just going to keep swirling this and keep blending it, okay? You don't want any lines, you don't want any skipping or anything. So just keep blending. And you can always build up more, because you can always add more, you can't always take away without ruining all your hard work, okay? So focus this on like almost the crease, and then just kind of blend it down in that V shape. It's going to give us that smoky exterior. As you can see, I'm not going past the iris of my eye. It's just almost like it's framing my eye. Okay, and I like to apply shimmers with my fingers because I think they apply better that way, honestly. But if you weren't going to use your finger, you want a flatter brush like this, okay? Because it's going to compact that shimmer, and especially shimmers have a lot of fallout. Okay, so you want something that's going to pack on the color instead of just kind of fluffing it everywhere and then having all this glitter all over your face. Okay, I'm going to use this shimmering shade right here. The shimmer will add a little bit more dimension to your eye, and just kind of, it will accentuate your eyes because you see the definition with the crease color, and you also see the definition with the dark brown we put on the outer edge. So now I'm putting on this shiny, like this shimmering color, and this will add like a little bit of like, your eyes will be drawn to something that's a little bit brighter. With highlighting and contouring, you anything that's light is going to draw attention, okay? And anything that's darker is going to hide. So think of it like in the sunshine, you see a lot of things because everything is very bright and light. and in the dark you don't see as much because it's all hidden. And the same works for contouring and highlighting. And that's a lot of the questions that I get. I don't think, if you have a big nose, you contour your nose to make the imperfections disappear, and then you highlight the spots of it to give you that overall. The ideal face shape is oval. So when you're contouring, you contour your face to look more like an oval face, and that's what corrects in any way. Even though you can still, of course, be beautiful without all that, but that's a lot of the questions that I get. The ideal face shape is oval, and I have a pretty round head. It's not quite as oval, so I still do contour a little bit just to accentuate my features. With corrective contouring and highlighting and all of that, it just kind of adds, it enhances what you already have. It's not creating something that's not there. Sometimes you can do that with makeup, but that's not what we're doing today. And I'm actually just kind of running that really light, like hot chocolatey kind of shade, just a tiny bit more with that fluffier brush, just kind of in the crease, just to blend those shadows up here. And I'm just going back and forth in window shield motions. Okay, and now this is going to lighten and brighten the eyes and make your eyes appear a little bit wider. For those of you, typically big lips and big eyes are pretty popular, like high cheekbones, that sort of thing. Excuse me. So for me, when I like my eyes pretty big, I like, if I'm not doing a super smoky look, if I'm doing more corrective, I'll try to look more bright, wide, and awake. So lighter colors are going to help that. And underneath my brow bone, which is right here, you want to highlight that because it's part of your facial structure and it's going to create like this overall look. And so I'm going to pick up this very, very light shade right here. And I'm picking that up on this flat shader brush. You can use a smaller brush if you want. I just like how precise this can get. And I'm just going straight up underneath that brow bone right here. And that lighter shade is just going to accentuate my brow bone. If you have a really heavy brow, you may not want to highlight that because you may be self-conscious about it. Because remember, whenever we highlight something, it draws it back out. People see it first. And I like my brow bone pretty well, so I'm just going to highlight underneath. And something that will really help, like wake you up and everything like that, I'm going to take a little fluffier brush, or you can usually find these in a lot of drugstore little packets and stuff like that. Let's see if I can find it. They're like these little like sponge applicators, and I really like those for inner corner highlights because they really pack on the color and make it really bright and intense. So I'm picking up that same whiter shade, and I'm picking this up on this little spongy applicator because it really will pack the color in. And what I do is I'm going to pack this on that inner corner, and you can already tell that my eyes already look so much more awake and just bright, and it really accentuates the eyes. And see, already I just look a lot more awake. Okay, now we're actually going to continue on with the face, just because for now we are done with the eyes. I have this giant sponge, or if you like a more heavy coverage, you want to get yourself a stippling brush. And now not all stippling brushes look like this, but a lot of them do. And it will just have kind of like a flared, this one's a little bit dirty, but it will just kind of have like a flared, almost squared off top. They're a little bit denser. And remember, the denser the brush, the heavier the coverage, because with loose, fluffier brushes, it kind of like moves around the stuff. It may not pick up the product the same way. With foundation, I use the number 7 Lift and Illuminate foundation in Warm Ivory when I am not tan at all. And I put a couple pumps on the back of my hand. If you have drier skin, if you really struggle with dry skin, then definitely mix in an oil. And I know you're probably thinking, that's just stupid. Not every foundation you can mix with an oil, but a lot of them you can, and it will really help all of these foundations blend out really smooth, okay? And I just dot this all over my face, and depending on the day, I may use a beauty blender if I want a more sheer coverage, which is this, which I'm actually not going to be using right just yet. I'm actually going to use my stippling brush because I wanted a little bit more heavy coverage. And I'm just going to pounce this right into the skin and just keep blending. Okay, always remember too, especially if your foundation doesn't perfectly match your skin, to kind of blend a little bit down the neck, and it's not going to give you that weird face mask where it just kind of cuts off where your chin is. Alright, and what I like to do sometimes, because sometimes this, I have kind of a big face and I have a lot of little pockets all in my face, so I'll take my ginormous beauty blender, and remember to always kind of sweep up, because you don't want to cover up all that shadow that you just did, but it will kind of help sharply define it and kind of lift up your eyes one more time. I use the beauty blender and I will kind of pounce it all over my face one last time to kind of blend every little line so we don't have like streaks coming across our face. And just kind of blend it out a little bit better. Now for concealer, you want a little bit lighter of a concealer, okay? Because you want to lighten under your eyes, because if you're anything like me, you have really dark under eyes. And so I'm using the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. And I'm just going to paint this underneath my eye. You use however much coverage you need to cover up these circles. And to highlight the rest of my face, I won't always do this, but sometimes I will. I'll put it down the bridge of my nose and I'll put it on my forehead, and it brings out these features, okay? Because remember, you're highlighting the good areas of your face and trying to hide or just kind of like shadow out some things that you may not like, okay? And I blend out my concealer with a beauty blender just because it blends almost seamlessly. And just remember, if you have very, very dark circles, depending on your skin color, like if you're light like me, then you want something with a little bit of a yellow undertone. If you're of a medium color, then peach may work for you if you have really, really dark under eyes, because in color correction, you always use the color opposite of the color that you have in the color wheel, okay? So most of the time your under eye circles are really blue, so you want something with like a slightly orange base, so that's why peach really works well. On the very, very dark skin tones, you can use red because they do have such dark circles, you know? It's a little bit different to blend out with your skin, because you don't want to use peach all the time on certain people because it just will not blend in. So that's color correcting. I don't need a whole lot of color correcting just because I like a lighter coverage. And now you see I've already blended everything out. And now the next step is cream contour. And what I like to do with this is I get one of these brushes. I can either get a smaller one or a bigger one. I can't remember what these brushes are actually called, but they're just kind of like condensed brushes that pack on color really well. And with cream contour, you don't want to go too dark. You want something a little bit on the ashier side. If you're really pale, you have to stay away from the ones with warm tones because they can make you look really, really orange. And so for me, I like using this e.l.f. cream contour palette. It's like $6 maybe. And what I end up doing is I'll pick up this shade and a little bit of this darker shade. I can get away with a lot more warm tones because I'm warm based and I also like warm tones. If you're slightly paler, you may not be able to get away with these colors. You may use the ashier one. I'm not sure if you can use the darker one. Now to find your cheekbone, lay your finger down and you can feel your cheekbone where it is, okay? So put your finger on your cheekbone, and wherever it's right underneath, like you can kind of tell where mine is already. I have pretty big cheekbones. And so it will already have like a shadow. So wherever my cheekbone is, I can find it with my finger. And whatever's underneath that is where I need to put my contour, okay? So you want to go all the way back and create a very thin line. I don't like to go too far in because it can start looking really muddy as soon as you start blending it out. So I find my cheekbone with my finger and I just carve out underneath that to accentuate them. Now for my nose, I don't have a lot to correct on my nose, but I will just kind of go down the bridge, making sure that I'm not covering up that middle because it can kind of, remember it's a shadow and we're trying to make my nose look more oval. So what I ended up doing is kind of like putting a little bit down here and I'll put a little bit on the sides and right underneath my lip, because I like to make my lip look a little bit bigger, I will put a really dark shade. Right underneath the main part of my lip. Now for the temples, I'm going to use that ashier shade. I'm going to slightly blur out right here and here. And then I'm going to slightly drag this up, just slightly. I'm not going to go crazy. Because I mean, I have a wide forehead, but I don't really have a lot of space going up. And that's when you get that oval face shape. So I add a little bit on these sides to blend out. Now you can use a brush, but I typically use a beauty blender just because it's easier, especially the smaller ones. And I'm just going to blend a little bit down. If I start blending up, it's going to start smearing in this middle here, and it's going to make my whole nose kind of disappear and look a little dirty. And now for this one, I found that if I start up here and start working my way down, it can get really heavy in through here. So what I like to do is I'll start from the end and work my way up in little patting motions, and it will just start blending up this cream contour. You never want to drag down because then you're going to start shading up areas that you don't want to be shaded. And another thing is too, I don't often do this because I often work in lighting that's not like 100% great. Like right now I have fairly good lighting, but some people will add a darker shade in through here and it will kind of cut out that extra chin. So if you really want to look lifted and sculpted, you can run a line of your contour right underneath your chin, and that way it will shadow that and kind of cancel out cancel out any sort of like overhanging that you may have. I don't have a huge double chin or anything, so that's not really a big concern of mine. So I don't typically do it, and plus it can be really easy not to blend out enough because it's already shadowed. So anyway, what I end up doing is now I will set my face. You do not ever want to layer cream on top of powders, okay, or whatever, because you want to set the cream. Otherwise, whatever things, and this is why we set our eyelids before we added shadow. If you put a shadow straight on like a shadow blush, it's going to stick to whatever you have. Think about it like you have a bag of flour and you have like a counter full of like water. Wherever you put the flour, it's going to stick wherever that water is, and it's not really going to come off without just kind of like crumbling and just kind of messing up. It's not going to smoothly like work itself out, okay? So what we end up doing is putting a little bit of translucent powder. If you want to, if you like that extra coverage, I typically don't, but if you want that extra coverage and everything, you can end up going in with like a face powder versus a translucent powder, but since I don't like very heavy foundation and it tends to look really cakey on my skin, I pretty much only use translucent powder. So what I ended up doing is I bought this Coty Airspun powder. This is in the shade Translucent Extra Coverage. It's kind of funny that I said I didn't want extra coverage and it's called extra coverage. And so I'm just going to end up setting like the main parts of my face first, like all the places that we have highlighted. Now for those of you who want a sharper contour, you can definitely do this step. I take the pointed end of the Beauty Blender and I just kind of carve out wherever that darker shade was, and I'll blend down with it. So that way the translucent powder is kind of creating like a little bit of a line, like a softer line. If you have smile lines, you can do this trick. I typically set my face just because I don't like a lot of lines in my makeup, and I like all of my foundation to blend smooth. Not foundation. I want all of my powders to blend smoothly on top of this. And if you have smile lines, you can blow up your cheeks and set. You can blend out whatever little creases you have and then set it with the powder with your face blown out. And it will set it without making like a ton of creases. Now, to finish this, I'm going to take this big fluffier brush and pick up whatever residue we still have, and then I'm going to pack this, just kind of fluff it all over the rest of my face to make sure everything is good and set. I do not want any tackiness, because then everything will start sticking and not blend as smoothly. Setting your foundation is going to ensure that it stays a little bit longer. And if you're like me and you kind of scratch your face or whatever, it's not going to just take off the foundation because of your nail, because it's going to be set in there and it's going to be kind of like packed up tight. Alright, so you can do this any which way you want. I end up contouring next. I put a powder contour on if I'm feeling pretty bougie. So for a contour, I like thinner angled brushes. This is from Wet n Wild, and this is actually really super cheap. So it's a really good brush for the price. I think it's like $1 or $2 maybe $3. But you can find this at the drugstore. And I like this angled brush because it will fit directly underneath this little space that I have and give me that sharper look without being like really big and fluffy and just kind of like going all over my face. Because with contour, you want to be precise, you want to be blended, but you don't want to be all over the place, because the more shadow you put in, the heavier it's going to look and the more dark you're going to look overall. Okay, so I'm going to pick up this medium shade right here. And you can even pick up the ashier side, but I don't mind a little warmth in my contour. And so I'm just going to go right up under with a light hand. You don't want your contour to be like a black streak. I mean, maybe you do, but that's not what we're going for today. And so with that in, I will place my line, and then I'm going to start blending up, because I do not want to keep dragging it down, because we're already going to add color up here, and it's going to kind of minimize that contour that we're blending up. I'm just going to kind of dust this right here, because we are going to add bronzer, so I'm not too concerned about up in this area. But what I will do, if you don't like how big your brush is, you can switch down to a much smaller brush. You want a little bit of precise brush, but a little bit of fluffier brush, okay? So you can pick up, this is also, this is an e.l.f. brush. This one would be good because you know it's tapered, but it's still fluffy, so you can still blend out and not make it look so like lines on your face. And what I'll end up doing is I'll kind of brush super lightly over that area that we already contoured, and then I'm going to add a tiny little bit on my nose. And what I'll do is I'll kind of, almost like a toothbrush, you're like gently just kind of working away. And then underneath my lip, I may take the darker shade just because I like my lips to look pretty big. I mean, they are, but I like to make them look bigger. And now that's it for the contouring powder. Now the next step that I like to pick, you can choose a different brush. I like more condensed brushes just because they pack on the color and they do what I want. This one's a little bit angled, so it helps with certain angles on my face. And what I end up doing is, on a lighter skinned, like any sort of thing, you're going to want what's called a banana powder. It's like that yellow, because yellow brightens and it starts counteracting all that darkness. So what I'll do is I'll put a tiny little bit of this that's more like my skin color, and then I'll dab it into this highlight shade in the middle, which is very yellow. And what I end up doing is I kind of put it right up underneath my eye, and it will brighten up that under eye and make me look a lot less tired. And I put a tiny bit down my nose and a little bit on my forehead, right there in that middle. I don't want to highlight my whole forehead because remember, we're still contouring and shadows and depths and everything. And sometimes if my contour gets a little bit messy or anything like that, I will run this right up underneath and it'll just kind of carve it out, make it look a little bit brighter. This look isn't for everyone. I know some people may not like how there's still a contrast right there. And I'll put some on the center of my chin. And this will just bring out my face, okay? Now we're going to add in a little bit of blush. I'm just going to kind of wrap this up pretty quickly here. Just kind of rock and roll. And you can use a warm tone blush, you can use a cool tone depending on whatever. I typically do not like mixing cool and warm tones together, okay? If I have cool on my eyelid, I want cool on my face, I want cool on my lips. It creates a cohesive look, and it creates a look that looks very appealing to the eye because everything is complementing each other. You don't want warm lipstick with like icy blue, you know. It's just not going to complement each other, and you're just not going to notice it as well. And when you look at someone visually, it will kind of mess with you because it's not going to be as appealing as something that would be very cohesive together. Okay? For blush, you can do one of two things. If you want a little bit more color, you can do this like packed in condensed brush like this. This is by Revlon. This is their powder brush. And it's very condensed. It's not like super condensed. It's enough condensed where it will blend easily, but it will hit me with a lot of color when I put it on, okay? My favorite shades are these kind of like rosy, almost plummy shades. So I'm going to go with a mixture of Angelic and Skillful. These are both kind of like rosier shades that are very light, very pleasing. It's a good like wedding kind of coloration. And this is the Tarte Blush Bazaar. I don't even think they sell them anymore, but Tarte blushes in general, their Amazonian clay ones, are really good. Okay, and so what I end up doing with a lot of blush is I'll tap it off, and sometimes if it's really pigmented, I'll dab it on my arm to kind of get that first kick off so I'm not just stamping and looking like a big doll. You know those dolls that have like the big pink circles? And what I'll end up doing is I'll smile, I'll find the apple of my cheek, and then I'll just blend on up. And what I like to do to kind of like draw in a makeup look to make it look a little bit more natural, less like just blush on my face, put a tiny bit on my nose. Alright, and now, if you like less blush, you don't even want this much blush, you like that really like you just went out in the sun, you kind of like got a little bit sun-kissed kind of look, you can use a fluffier blending brush. This is from Crown Brushes, no, excuse me, Moda Pro, and this is their BMX 130 pointed blush brush. This is very fluffy, it's a little bit pointed, so it kind of gives you that angle that fits perfectly right there, and that will give you a lighter wash. Remember, excuse me, the more condensed the brush is, the more it will pack on, and the looser the brush, the more it will kind of go everywhere else, which is why it's good to have that kind of balance. Now for highlight, because I'm a warmer tone person, I like golds, but because we're doing cool tones today, I'm going to pick up this pinkier shade. And this is really just has to do with your liking which one you like in general. This is Worthy from that Blush Bazaar. And I'll just tap it off. And I love fan brushes like this. I hate thinner fan brushes. For some reason, they just really get on my nerves. I never can work with them very well. So I usually end up like tossing those brushes whenever I get them in a kit. For highlight, you don't want to go too far down because you're not trying to highlight the whole cheek area. You're trying to highlight your cheekbone. So what you're going to do is you're going to lightly brush this in, brush it on the cheeks, and just highlight that general area so that when you move your head, you have like this sheen, this really healthy, glowy sheen. Now for me, I love nose highlight. I think I have kind of a little nose, so I like accentuating it. I mean, it's pointy, but it's pretty little. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of brush this on over my nose, and then I'll really accentuate the very tip of my nose. And sometimes, because I'm feeling extra today, I'm going to put a little bit on the top of my lip. And what that does is just kind of highlights your lips and kind of drags them forward, because you want your eyes and your lips to be a main focus, okay? Especially when you're a girl. That's our thing. So anyway, now that I have everything kind of highlighted, kind of glowy, I'm going to quickly go over some brows and kind of like what I do with my lips. Okay, so what I end up doing for my brows, you almost always want to fill in your brows, okay? Because unless you have incredibly dark eyebrows, which makes me super jealous because I do not have any, as you can tell. You want to, eyebrows are such an important part of your eye makeup look because they're just, I mean, it creates a structure for your face. Okay, there it is. Perfect, we're good. I like this one because it has a spoolie on one end and because it has a very thin angled brush on the other end. So what I like to do is I'll brush my eyebrows straight up so that it exposes all those places that need to be filled in. Remember, if you're a cooler tone girl, do not use a warm shade on your eyebrows because it's going to look real funky. I'm using this shade right here. My hair tends to be a little bit more on the mousy or brown side. And plus, I just like cool tones on my eyebrows anyway. It makes them look darker. Warmer tones actually reflect light. So cooler tones appear darker than they actually are because they're sucking in all that light. That's the way it works with hair, and that's the way it works with just any kind of coloration. And what I end up doing is I'll take that little brush and I'll fill in all those little areas that are really sparse or need to be kind of darkened. If you like the wispier brow, you can fill in from here to here and just kind of drag this down, and it creates this very structured brow. And what I like to do is once I've brushed up my eyebrows, kind of go back over and I'll kind of smooth down the top so they don't look so wild. Even though I know that's a look that some people like, you don't have to do that. But the more you fill in the front, the more unnatural it's going to look, because a lot of people do not have just thick, bold eyebrows like that. If you want to make them look a little bit more natural, you can leave that front just a little bit more feathery. You can still fill it in, but not as heavy as you would the tail end of your brow and this arch. Alright, and I'm just flicking up on that one area because I like that to be less filled in than the rest. And now our brows are done, and you see this whole new structure to my face because I filled in my eyebrows. Okay, now we're going to finish off the eyes, and I'm running on that lighter color with a smaller condensed brush. This is the one it comes with. See how it's like still fluffy, but it's a little bit pointed, so it'll get in that area really well. And I'm going to run this lighter shade, connecting that outer corner all the way in. If you don't like that heavier look, you can only have to go like halfway. Typically what I do with really dark shades, you'll see in a minute. And now I'm still taking that in because it was a little bit sharper than I originally thought. And I'm picking up that darkest shade that we have. And this is really going to accentuate the outside of our eye. And I'm just putting this on this very corner and dragging it in, but not all the way. So I'm only dragging in to about where my eye starts, that iris. Because I want it to not be as smoky, but I still want that little kick. Okay, now I'm just going to put on some mascara and then I'll be back for the lips. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to start here and then I'm just going to line all my lips and then you'll see how I kind of overline them. Okay, now, I don't know if you could tell, but I kind of overline my lips just a little bit. What I end up doing is I kind of mimic the way my lips look, and I'll kind of drag it just a tiny bit over that line. And now I'm using a lipstick. The lip liner was Essence Lip Liner in Satin Mauve, and this is an Essence lipstick in 05 Cool Nude. And they just match really well. I like my lip liners to be a little bit darker than the actual shade, because what you do when you're like contouring and highlighting your mouth is remember that darker is going to just kind of deepen, okay? So if you use a darker lip liner on the outside and use a little bit lighter on the inside, then it's going to make your lips appear like a lot plumper and fuller. And what you can do too is either a trick is you can put lip gloss in the very center of your lip, the very end, like a cohesive lip gloss, like I would use like a pinkier one. Or you can use a slightly lighter than your lipstick shade as well. And then it adds like this really cool dimension where it just kind of shadows and contours and really brings your lips like out into life. And I actually am not going to put a lighter color on just because I know I'll be wearing this all day and I don't really want to mess with 3 different lipsticks in my purse. And so the very final step, and this is important for you ladies that want to look very wide, bright, and awake, especially if you have hooded eyes or just dark circles in general. This is the NYX Wonder Pencil in, I think it's just light. And what I'll end up doing is running this along the lash line, and it will just open and brighten up your eyes even more. And as you can tell, my eyes are just a lot more wide awake and open looking. I think this is it. So if you have a problem with your makeup staying all day, you can invest in a setting spray. I actually will finish off with this just because I know I'll be wearing this for hours and hours. And I have pictures later, so I really want to look good for those. Even though the pictures are going to be like 100 miles away. So it probably won't even matter. But I am using the Urban Decay All Nighter Makeup Setting Spray. This stuff is golden. It will lock your makeup in place. Perfect for brides, perfect for anyone who like sweats a lot, perfect for those oily skin. So anyway, I'm just going to use the setting spray and then we'll be done. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and as you can tell, my face is glistening a little bit from the spray. But this is a matte finishing spray as well. If you like that glowy look, then you can invest in a glowy setting spray, but I don't, so I'm not doing that today. So anyway, this is my in-depth tutorial. I know it's going to be a million years long, but thank you so much for bearing with me if you did, and I'll see you all next time. If y'all like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.